I have quite a bit of the car wired up now, so in this video I'm going to talk about the high voltage wiring. So first, this is the main battery pack negative, which flows into the ESP32. This box then, based on all the voltage it senses from the individual cells, has a contactor in here, and then it runs the negative down here to the controller, so that contactor can cut if anything's wrong. Here's the front box positives. This is at about 40 or so volts. This runs underneath through the cab and to down in here behind the box in the corner, the negative of the rear box. And then this is the positive of the rear box, which runs through on the other side. One of these is the main positive line coming from the rear pack. I have an inline fuse here before it goes into the ESP32, so if there's any overcurrent event, that will blow and the system will cut. So there's another safety feature there. And likewise, if there's any voltage that goes wrong, there's a contactor in there, voltage or temperature issues. This goes to the controller positive, and it can cut that if it senses anything was wrong. Now, this isn't ideal. I'm running these through the old heater ducts like they were before. In an ideal world, I would have this under the car in some conduit, but for now I'm going to leave it in here. I have quite a bit of extra length on all the cables in case I do want to run them in conduit under. Also here I have an emergency cutoff switch, so if something crazy happens, like temperatures getting super high or the throttle gets stuck, I can reach and flip this switch, which will cut battery power to the controller and motor. So that's a good safety addition to have there in the cab. So that actually makes my routing underneath with conduit, that would make it kind of difficult because I'd have to route conduit, bring it up into the cab to have my switch back down to the conduit and through. This gray cable is the data cable that gives the information for the cell voltages and the temperature. That goes through into this box, then out of this box into the ESP32. So this is where it gets interesting. Because I want this to always be on, if I were to turn the key off and I wanted to start charging, I want that to still be on to sense the voltages while I'm charging. So since this always has to be on, the contactors are always closed, if everything's okay. So then if I were to go turn the key on, there would be an inrush of current to the controller which could damage the controller. So because of that, on the positive output from the box, I have an additional contactor here which breaks the flow between what's coming from the box to the controller. And then I have a connector here which is hooked up to my key switch. So this, if I activate the key switch, it closes this contactor, turns on the controller. This is a pre-charge resistor to help prevent current inrush. So coming off of here, this is on the output end of the ESP32, so even with the car off there is voltage here. I pulled off of here and the ground. This is 140 volt. This runs into my DC-DC converter, and then that runs down into my 12 volt system. Also part of the high voltage system is the charger. So here's one of the pins for charge enable. So if it senses the temperature is correct and the voltages are correct, this switch, I have this connected to a relay, and this relay is interrupting the DC positive output of the charger. So if anything's wrong, this switch would turn off, which would cut off the relay and no more charging would happen. I have an inline breaker here. This is where I mounted my charger, my inlet port, J1772. It would have been, I didn't want to drill into any panels, So what I had to do is I made a bracket here, and then there's another steel bracket here that I pinched and tied between the bumper mount. So that's how I will charge the cars, up here on the front with this port. This has an outlet here which goes to the charger inlet, which is over here, and then the charger outlet goes through the breaker, through the relay, not necessarily to the battery, but to the output end of the ESP, so it can charge through the ESP to the input end to the battery. That sums up the high voltage system. I've still got quite a bit of wiring to do for the low voltage, so that will be the next video.